Today, we're gonna simplify every single step you need to know for the home buying process. Hey, I'm Antonio, and I help beginner real estate investors who just don't know where to start to buy their first investment property confidently using the software tools that I build. To work with me, click the link in the description down below. When I started out as a beginner investor, I was reading books to try to figure out what the home buying process was, and none of the books that I read clearly detailed it. So after going through the process myself, my goal is to make it so clear that you know every single step and everything you need to know about it. Unless you're Mr. Moneybags, you're gonna need some money to buy the house. Houses cost $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $1 million if you live in New York City like I do. It's fucking expensive and ridiculous. So the first step that you're gonna need to do is get the money by calling a bank and getting a pre-approval letter. If you don't have a mortgage lender, I don't want you to get stuck on this step. I'm gonna give you the phone numbers of my mortgage lenders down low if you need them. All a pre-approval letter is that it's a piece of paper that says that the bank decided to take a look at your finances for a few seconds and decided that based off of what they saw and what you told them, that you'd be a good person to lend a certain amount of money to. Here they're gonna ask you for things like your sources of income, how much money you got saved, what's in your 401k, what's your credit score, things like are you buying an investment property or are you buying a place to live, what kind of house is it, is it single family or is it multifamily? Don't worry if you don't have all the questions, they're gonna give you an answer based off of what you do have. In the end, what you'll get is a letter that just says, you can be approved for a loan up to X dollars. For me, I got one up to 200K on my first house. This step is so important because without the money to buy the house and without the pre-approval letter, you cannot prove that you are actually a serious buyer and people are not gonna take you seriously. So step one has to be this. Now, for some reason you can't get pre-approved, you're gonna be stuck at step one. The only ways around this is if you find a partner that is willing to get the loan for you, or you get someone that is willing to be a co-signer with you. And this way, both of your credits combined, you can get something. Both your incomes combined, you can get something.
I got something to tell you.
See the thing about you that caught my eye is the same thing that makes me change my mind. So you got this pre-approval letter. What's the next step? Step two is you actually get to go shopping for a house. Hell yeah. Go to Zillow, Trulia to go start looking for properties to buy. When you find a property you like on Zillow or Trulia, when you're on the property, you can scroll and you'll find the option to click to call. Call them, contact that agent. And when you're on the phone with them, tell them that you're an investor, tell them that you're looking to buy a home in this area. Mention that you want to go set up some time to go look at the property and maybe see a few other properties that they have that are similar. Step three now is to actually go look at the property. What I typically do when I go look at properties is I take a video of it if no one's in the property, or I jot down some notes on my phone to understand what is going on. Now, step four, this is so crucial as an investor. You must do your calculations. Once you've gone to look at the property and you know all the financials that you can possibly find out, go back to your apartment, home, wherever you live, and start doing the calculations on your computer to figure out what the cash flow is gonna be and what the cash on cash return is gonna be. If you need a video to explain how to do either of those calculations, click on screen, one of these two, I don't know, one of these two. The calculations are gonna tell you if the property is something you should make an offer on or not. There are two options, offer or no. And if you decide not to offer, then you can go back and keep looking for more properties and wait till something else comes on the market. Or your option is to make an offer. And if you make an offer, then you move on to the next step. Step five, simple, make an offer. An offer sounds as complicated and scary thing, but I promise you it's really not. Here's some guidelines that you can use when making an offer on a house. One is make sure that it's based off of calculations that you've used for cash flow. Two, make sure that it's within some feasible range of what the owner is asking for the house. And then three, make sure it's at a price point that you can afford, based off of the pre-approval letter you got in step one. If you don't make the offer based on cash flow, then you risk throwing your investment in the garbage and buying a bad deal. We don't want that. If you don't offer in the range of what they're asking for and something reasonable, like if you had $100,000 of a house and you decided to offer $20,000, not really reasonable. They're probably not gonna take the deal. And then third, if you can't afford the $100,000 home and you decided to skip to this step, then you're wasting everyone's time. Just don't do that. You're wasting my time too by watching this video. So now the second most important part of an offer is what's called contingencies. All a contingency is just a gotcha. It's a rule in an offer that says the offer is valid as long as X, which is the contingency, actually happens. An example of a contingency is a financing contingency. All this says is that the offer stands and the contract stands as long as I, the buyer, can get a mortgage. If I can't get the mortgage, then it allows me to back out. If you didn't have a financing contingency, then what would happen is if you didn't get the mortgage, then you would have to pay off the entire home at once with cash. Most of us can't afford that because we're broke out here. Contingencies are just there to protect the buyer and the seller from making any mistakes and buying something that they don't want, and leaves them an option to back out. Another common one is an inspection contingency. This allows you to walk away if the inspection is bad, or to reduce the price based off of an inspection. It's that simple. So in the end, your offer should contain a home price that meets our 3 guidelines and 0 or more contingencies based off of how secure you want to make the deal for yourself. Your agent is going to help you with this. They're going to write up the contract, send it over to you to sign, and then send it over to the seller so they can review it with all the other offers that they might have had. Step 6 is now negotiations. If you've made a reasonable offer, there's only 3 options that the seller can have. It's to accept, to reject, or renegotiate. If they reject your offer completely and don't come back with one, then all you have to do is rewrite a new offer based off of what you think they'll accept, because they obviously didn't like the one you just gave them. It was ridiculous. So if they decide to negotiate with you, then they're probably going to take something away that you cared about, or add something that really mattered to them. Now you can come back and accept, reject, or negotiate, add a few things, remove a few things. It's a give and take. You're gonna keep giving some, you're gonna keep taking some until everyone can agree and think it's a fair deal. Now, if they accept, congratulations, you're under contract for a home. The first thing you need to do right away is go into step 7, and that's called attorney review. Attorney review is basically when you get a lawyer, and the lawyer takes a look at the contract and the offer that you made and makes it into a legally binding contract, writing up legally important words that you and I probably don't understand. Here's actually an interesting time, because you have the opportunity to scratch whatever you had in the original offer and rewrite the whole offer again, but make it legally binding. You could change the home value to like $1 if you want. Now, no one's gonna take you up on that, but you could if you wanted to. You'd just be wasting everyone's time, so don't do that. Now, your job is to work with the lawyer to rewrite the contract within 3 days of you getting the offer signed. You're gonna discuss things that you want in the contract that can protect you, things that you think are important to you, and things that are probably important to the seller, and you're gonna send it off to them. Once the lawyer's done with it, he'll send it to the seller and the seller's lawyer, and they'll take a look at it. And again, at this point, they have 3 options. They can accept it, they can reject it, or they can renegotiate. If you guys don't come to an agreement on the attorney review, then you'll end up out of contract and you'll be basically back to looking at properties again. If they accept it, you move on. But most times they'll come back with a few things here and there. They didn't like some of your language, they didn't like something you changed, so you'll have to come back and fix it. Negotiate a little bit, and then you'll be done. Step 8. So once you've gotten past the attorney review, you probably have to give a deposit for the house. This is called an earnest or a good faith deposit, where you prove that you actually got money. It's just a symbol to show that, hey, I have money to pay for this thing. So you're gonna go ahead and send that money to your lawyer, and they're gonna hold that money in a escrow account for you. This way, when it's time to actually close, they're gonna use that money as part of your down payment. Step 9 now is, once you've sent the deposit, is to get a home inspection. Okay, so you're gonna need to call a home inspector, and the home inspector is going to take a look at the house. It's gonna look at everything, find out everything that's wrong, and give you a report. This way you can see everything that's wrong with the home. You as the buyer typically pay for an inspection. It's probably $500, somewhere around there, 700, 800, somewhere around there. Once the inspector is done giving you the report, you call up your lawyer and you discuss the things you read in the report. There's gonna be a whole list of things that are wrong with the property, because the inspector's job is to find things that are wrong with it. So if he doesn't find something wrong, then technically he's not doing his job. So you have 3 options after reading the report. You can ask the seller to give you money off of the house price to fix the things that are wrong with the property. You can ask the seller to fix the things himself, or third, you can just leave everything as is and accept it. Or if you have an inspection contingency, you can back out. Most times what ends up happening is you go back and forth with your lawyer and the seller's lawyer and negotiate something. Maybe a few dollars off the home value. Maybe they fix a few things because everyone wants to get the deal done. They don't want the home to go back on the market.
I'm reminded when I look at you, yeah, you my fans, remind me of a girl that I once knew. Maybe you're an investor too, and I've seen you before.
Step 10. Once you pass the inspection stage, the next job is for you to call your mortgage lender up and say, hey, it's time for me to close on this house. This is what I'm buying it for. This is when the closing date is. Let's get it moving. Now your mortgage lender is going to ask you for all the real documents to prove that you can actually get the money. Because before, all they did was they took a brief glance and was like, I think he can do it. But now you have to actually prove it with proof of income. They have to check your credit score. They have to check your savings and your investment accounts to make sure you have enough money to put towards the house. Otherwise, you don't get the loan. Be prepared to have this information ready for them. It's going to be a list of documents. The quicker you act, the quicker you'll have the home. Step 11. Once you've given all the documents over to your mortgage lender, now the mortgage lender needs to send out an appraiser to come look at the home. Typically takes a few weeks before the appraiser can actually get there. They're really slow. Don't ask me why it takes a few weeks. We got prime shipping now. That could happen in a day. I don't know why it takes 2 weeks for someone to show up somewhere. Anyway, that's just my gripe. But the appraiser is gonna go look at the home and assess its value. It's gonna look at everything, kind of like the inspector, and determine how much it's worth compared to all the other homes in the neighborhood, all the other homes nearby that are very similar. This step is so important for you to get the money you're looking for. So here's a caveat with the appraiser. The appraiser has to actually say that the home is worth what you are buying it for. Because if it isn't, then they can't give you a loan for what you're buying it for. And what you'll have to do is pay the difference between what they said it was worth and what they're giving you a loan for. And you'll pay the cash difference based off of what you were putting down on that loan and what you're buying the house for. And I don't know about you, I'm not Mr. Moneybags either, so it's a little difficult for me to get that extra cash when I wasn't expecting to pay it. The bank needs to do this step because if for some reason you don't pay for the loan and they have to foreclose on the house, they need to make sure that they can sell it for what the loan is worth. Otherwise, they're gonna lose a crap ton of money. The bank is not in the business of losing money, they're in the business of gaining money. So if the home appraises for the value that you're buying it for, then you're all good. Hopefully you can still get the mortgage once you've handed over your documents. Now you got a real mortgage. It's about to start closing. There's one more thing the bank is gonna require you to do here, and it's gonna be to get insurance. Step 12 is that you're gonna have to go get home insurance. Now, home insurance, again, is a protection for you and a protection for the bank. If something goes wrong with the property, the bank is gonna wanna know that you've insured it, so this way the fault doesn't come back on them and they have to deal with all your problems. What you need is a home insurance broker, and they'll go out and look at all the insurance policies given your property and try to find you the cheapest one with the best rate. That's their goal, is to help you. So you'll typically pay the first year of home insurance right off the bat in full. And then you're gonna be paying monthly increments along with your mortgage payment. It's gonna go into escrow. Now, step 13 is to get a CO inspection. All a CO is, it's a certificate of occupancy. It's a little piece of paper that says people can live here legally by the town. You or the seller might be required to do this. It depends on what the contract says. So if the seller has to do this, and don't worry, it'll be in the contract if they need to do this or if you need to do this. If the seller has to do this, don't worry about it. If you have to do it, on the other hand, you must call up the township and order a CO inspection. The CO inspector will then come back with a list of things that you need to handle, things that need to be fixed before you can be given a CO, which means that you can't have anyone living in the house legally with the CO. Now, there's ways around it, but legally you can't. Now that you have the inspection, you have the certificate of occupancy, you're good to go. Step 14, on the way to the closing, or ideally a few days before, you go to the bank and you get a check that has the money that you need for the down payment and the closing costs that you get from your mortgage lender. They'll tell you exactly how much you need. You go to the bank, you get a certified check, and use that to pay for your house. Closing is the day that you actually get to buy the house. At this point, you would have already chosen a place of where you're gonna go and show up there for the closing to sign a bunch of papers and a bunch of long documents. Make sure to bring your check though, because like, you're not getting the house without it. Each document that you end up signing, the lawyer will hopefully explain what the document is actually saying. And if you have any questions, it's up to you to ask them. In the down payment, you're paying also closing costs. And closing costs have a lot of things involved in them. Here's a few of them. There's probably gonna be points for the mortgage, which is extra money you pay down on the mortgage just for having it. 2, loan fees. Fees that are associated with you getting the loan. Appraisal fee, that's the fee that you have to pay to get an appraisal done on the house, which has already been done, right? Title fees, fees associated with the title. You got deed fees, fees associated with the deeds, and lawyer fees. The lawyer helped you this entire way. They cost money, they're not free. All of those things are gonna be wrapped up in the closing costs. So you're gonna hand over the check, you're gonna sign a bunch of papers, and then voila, you got the house. Okay, so now you actually own the home. But this is actually the start of your journey, if you really think about it. So step 16 now is that you need to get a property manager. And a property manager is one of the best things you can do for yourself as an investor. Getting a property manager is so important because what it does is it saves you time and it saves you money. If you have a property manager collecting the rent and they do a really good job, you won't miss a month in rent when there's a tenant there. But if you're collecting the rent and you're not super focused on it, guess what? You might let a month slip by, a few days slip by, then the tenant doesn't pay you on time, and guess what? Now you don't have an optimally run property and you're losing a lot of time fixing things and wasting time on the property. The property manager's job is to save you time by fixing all the issues, by getting contractors to fix things that they can't fix, and to collect the rent, to get new tenants. This way, that property is more passive than active. Step 17, once you got the property manager, now you're probably gonna need a reliable contractor to help fix some of the things that were handed down to you or to add new value to the house. When you fix things like a bathroom or a kitchen, it tends to increase the value of the home. Even though it costs some money up front, the home's value will increase. And on top of that, you can probably rent it for a little bit more with a nicer bathroom and nicer kitchen. Finding a contractor can be difficult, but here's a few things you can do. Go to Google and type contractor in town. Go to a real estate meetup by finding one on meetup.com or biggerpockets.com and look for one where there's gonna be investors. Go there and ask them about what contractors they use in the area that they trust. Now, once you've gotten the contractor, step 18 is to get an accountant, because an accountant will save you tons of money over the years of you having them. Real estate investing has a lot of tax advantages. Even if you're not investing and you're just buying, there's a lot of tax advantages. All that money you're working for hard at your job, you can keep more of it if you get an accountant that knows what he or she is doing. And finding an accountant can also be difficult, but here's 2 ways. 1, go to Google and search real estate accountant in the town that you're looking for, or you can go to another real estate investor meetup and ask the other real estate investors for a CPA, an accountant that they trust to do their taxes. If there's one thing in this video that you don't understand, message me on LinkedIn. I will respond to any message you have. Okay, you know the entire buying process of a home now. What you do need to know is how to calculate cash flow. This way you know if you're making money as a real estate investor. Click the video on screen somewhere. This way you could watch it. Click it.